Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Today is January 12th, and we've got a full agenda today, full of arbitrations, big signings, and a lot of trades. Let's do it. Hello, everybody. My name is Steven. This is the middle of the order. How are we doing today, guys? It is Friday, the end of the week. For me, the start of school, and we've got a lot to get into here today. A lot of trades happening. Obviously, arbitration deadline was yesterday, so we're going to dive on into those names. As well as a couple big signings. So yeah, we have definitely a more full of a day here than we've had for most of the off season. But we are getting close to some baseball. It being January 12th, the first day for spring training is February 22nd. So that's going to get a lot of people their first chance to see some players on some new teams. The Dodgers will have to get very excited for Ohtani and Yamamoto. The Marlins have to get excited about nobody yet. But let's dive on in here and get started. Let's do some of the trades first today. Let's talk trades, especially because a lot of them happened Friday, like essentially almost a week ago, after the episode came out. So I was kind of a little ticked off. Not ticked off. We're fine here. So yeah, let's dive into some of those trades here and get started. And let's start with one of the biggest ones, essentially, if not the biggest one, in my mind, and that was between Seattle and the Giants, as Seattle is trading Robbie Ray over to San Francisco in exchange for Mitch Haniger and Anthony DeSclafani, three guys who names you know for sure. Robbie Ray definitely headlining that, the 2021 Cy Young winner with the Blue Jays. And he didn't really play much this year in his age 31 season, his second year with the Mariners. And he only played one game, and he only made one start. He pitched 3.1 innings, in which he gave up 3 earned runs, 4 hits, an ERA of 8.10. So yeah, let's not look at this year. And let's look at last year in 2020, his first year with Seattle. He was 12-12 with a 3.71 ERA. Pitched all 32 games, 189 innings, gave up 78 earned runs, 32 home runs. The reason he only played so little bit this year is due to Tommy John surgery. He had that. He had a lot of injuries kind of earlier on, and essentially like after the first start. So yeah, he had Tommy John surgery. He did not play essentially this year, and the Giants will be taking that now. He should be good to go about mid-May-ish, if not a little bit earlier, for the Giants fans who are out there. So there you go. You still get a really decent pitcher. Obviously, Robbie Ray, in his young career with the Diamondbacks, always kind of struggled with control. That was always his biggest thing. His walks numbers were always incredibly high. But always had nasty stuff. Once he started to figure things out towards the beginning of this decade, I guess, he was dominant, especially, coming into Toronto in 2020 during the COVID year. He, pitched decently, but nothing great. And then 2021, he just figured everything out and had the complete control. So Robbie Ray, definitely a nice add here. If you look at his contract, he was signed for a 5-year deal with the Mariners. The Giants have now taken that. However, Robbie Ray does have an opt-out, so he would be giving up the last 2 years of his contract worth $50 million if he decides to opt out. I don't think that will be the case, but maybe. He definitely has this year with the Giants, and then if he decides to opt out, he will obviously hit free agency in the offseason this year. But if he decides to stay into his contract, he'll play out the next 2 years for $50 million, and he'd be a free agent in 2027. And I would believe what it would be his age 34 season. Taking a look at the Mariners' return, Mitch Haniger is coming back to back to Seattle. He spent his first 5 years of his career there. His first proper time there. He obviously had a year in Arizona in 2016 that I definitely forgot about. So after a year of Arizona, he ended up in Seattle, where he played out the next 6 years there, obviously not including 2020, so 5 years essentially. And was essentially a fan favorite there in Seattle, had some big moments there. Did deal with injuries from time to time, only really had 2 seasons where he played, over 100 games. And in those 2 seasons, he was an all-star in one of them, and then in the top 20 of MVP votings for both of them. So when this guy is healthy and when he's playing, he is very good. 2023, though, he played with the Giants and did again deal with injuries. 61 games he only played this year. Only had 6 home runs, 28 RBIs, 209 average, so definitely injury affected his numbers this year. Even last year with Seattle wasn't great numbers, definitely a little bit better than his year with the Giants. I find this move interesting, though, to get him back if you're Seattle. Maybe he's more of a clubhouse guy than they thought originally. He definitely was a leader, going back to that 2022 Seattle team, possibly even 2021. Definitely a role model out there, and obviously losing Teoscar, they decided to go get their right fielder back from 2022 when they didn't have that. So I find that really wanting to have him back a very interesting piece. And then Anthony DeSclafani as well. I mean, very strong, name to know, if that makes any sense to any of you. I definitely remember this guy from his time with the Reds. Obviously spent the most time there, 5 years to be exact. But these last 3 years that he's had with the Giants have been good years, especially in 2021, where it was probably one of his best years ever career-wise. It was 13-7 that year with a 3.17 ERA. But in his 3 years with the Giants, he's 17-17 with an ERA just under 4 at 3.99. Could be a high-end pitcher, could be a guy with lack of control to say. Obviously, Robbie Ray, the better starter, but not to say Mitch Haniger, Anthony DeSclafani isn't and can't be on that same level for Seattle. He definitely has the stuff. It's more, can he figure it out for a full season again, like he kind of did in 2021. If you look at contract situation for these two guys that the Mariners got, DeSclafani is a free agent after this year, regardless of any outcome. So it'll be the 1 year he spends with Seattle before testing the market again. For Mitch Haniger, on the other end here, let me pull that up. He has a player option after this year as well. So same thing with Robbie Ray. Mitch Haniger can opt out of his last year here with $15 million or 15.5. So if he chooses to opt into that, he will play with the Mariners again next year. If he decides to opt out, he will be a free agent. And regardless, when he takes his player option, if he does, he would be a free agent the following year anyways in 2026. So yeah, that's the first trade. Like it a lot for the Giants to get Robbie Ray. Could be a lot of upside potential if he comes back healthy with control and can kind of find that 2021 form. And if you're the Mariners, you're hoping for that same thing for Mitch Haniger and Anthony DeSclafani to find their 2021 form, because they were very good years for all the 3 of these players. So I favor the Giants, though. I think Robbie Ray is going to come back and pitch phenomenally. So good move there for San Francisco. Looking ahead here, though, it wasn't the only trade the Mariners made this week. They also made a small swap for some young potential talent here with Tampa Bay, which is always something risky when you have to trade with the Rays. The Rays are sending Luke Raley to the Mariners in exchange for Jose Caballero. I hope I pronounced that right. I think I've been saying it wrong all last year. Let's start with Caballero, just so I can get through him. I don't have to worry about saying his name much. Last year was his first year in the big leagues with Seattle in his age 26 season. And he played okay, considering he wasn't out there every day. a 221 batting average, a 663 OPS, kind of a young, middle infielder, potential third base type of guy. I think it was said that the Rays are going to try to place him at shortstop and kind of use him there, which obviously they have a hole to fill there at shortstop. So, obviously this guy is fast and very defensively handy, but his bat can definitely get around there. Had 37 runs, 26 RBIs, but he did have 26 stolen bases. So when your stolen bases matches your RBIs, he's definitely very quick out there on the base pad. Only 4 home runs, racked up a 2.4 WAR. Luke Raley on the other side, we have a bigger sample size for this left-handed batter, and it's a funny story actually that came out on MLB.com afterwards. Luke Raley was on his honeymoon when this trade happened, and he was in the pool with his newlywed. Before finding out the news, he said he came out, saw his phone with like 47 missed calls and a bunch of messages, so he knows something had happened, but he did not know that he was traded to the Seattle Mariners at the time. Last year with the Rays was his first kind of big sample size at a season, but it wasn't his first season. He spent 2021 with the Dodgers playing 33 games, and then last year with the Rays 22 games, but in 2023, which I guess is last year, he played 118 games with the Rays, had 19 home runs, 49 ribbies, batted .249 with an OPS of 824. So the hitting definitely broke out there for him. Very much a utility guy for the Kevin Cash Tampa Bay Rays. Played pretty much all outfield positions. Played a little bit of first base, as well as third base even. Like, he definitely gets around, but he is more of a outfielder, first baseman type of guy. It'll be interesting to see how Seattle uses him. I don't think they said how he was going to get used, because obviously first baseman they have what's his name, Ty France, and then the outfield obviously Julio and Mitch Haniger that just got back, so maybe in left field to kind of replace Jared Kelenic type beat, lefty young lefty. He's going to be 29 this year, really is. So it's just a simple swap between some young talent. Both these guys are in pre-arb. They'll be with their respective teams for plenty of years, given another trade. So, don't mind the move for either guys. Hopefully it works out for both of them. You love it when trades kind of work out for both teams. The Rays get their, potential new shortstop for the next 4 or 5 years, and the Mariners get a lefty bat in the outfield who's going to play some great defense and, continue to break out as a good outfielder for them. So, Continuing on now with this trade train that we've been riding here. Tampa Bay stays in the mix here as they make another trade, this time with the Cardinals. To my knowledge, the last time the Cardinals and the Rays made a big trade, Randy Arozarena was involved in heading to Tampa. Could this be another one of those situations? Because the Rays are getting another young outfielder. This time it's Richie Palacios from the Cardinals. In exchange, the Cardinals are getting top-end relief pitcher Andrew Kittredge from Tampa Bay. And let's start with him because obviously there's more to talk about there. Looking at contract situation first, this is his last year of arbitration. So this is kind of a one-year deal for the Cardinals. They're going to get him this year before he hits free agency. Obviously, the Rays like to shed money. He was owed 2.6 this year, so they decide, you know what, Cardinals, you can take him. We'll take a young guy and bank on him here. Kittredge has spent 7 years in the majors, dating back to his debut in 2017, all with the Tampa Bay Rays, having ups and downs, but the last 2 or 3 seasons have been very good for him. He was an all-star in 2021 when he finished 9-3 with a 1.88 ERA. Taking a look at last year specifically, he had 14 games that he played in, a 3.09 ERA and only 11 innings, so definitely dealing with some stuff injury-wise there. In those 7 years, though, he's 18-7 out of the pen, which is pretty good. A 3.65 ERA in 214 innings. So obviously, when he plays a lot, he is dependable. He is reliable. He isn't, impossible to hit like some of the guys in that Rays bullpen is. But he should be a great addition to that Cardinals bullpen there, headlined by Giovanni Gallegos. Taking a look at Richie Palacios here. This isn't the first time the kid's been traded. He's going to be entering his age 27 season, and he's had some LB time here. 2022, he was with the Cleveland Guardians, played 54 games. And then last year, obviously, with the Cardinals. Didn't play much, but did play a little bit. Played 32 games, hit his first 6 home runs in the league, 16 RBIs to his name there, and an 823 OPS. If there's one thing the Rays are good at, it's trading for young talent and developing them into stars. It's kind of what we're expecting here with Richie Palacios and now Jose Caballero. This guy could be the next Randy for them, essentially, and be a staple out there. It'll be interesting how the Rays kind of work him into their lineup on a day-to-day. Obviously, they lost Manuel Margot in center, so maybe that's what they're trying to have him play, but he's only really played left field, or at least he's primarily a left fielder, but of course that's where Randy plays. Unless they decide to move Randy to DH spot, and that leaves him out there because obviously Richie, a little bit younger, a little bit faster. Not to say Randy's defense isn't good, just had a feeling that the kids might be a little bit better. So we'll see what kind of year he has as we expect him to take a prominent role in the Tampa Rays Devil Magic. So we'll have to see there. But yeah, that's another trade that went down between the Rays and the Cardinals. And then the last trade that we had happen was between the Dodgers and Cubs, but they made a trade for guys that you definitely don't know the names to unless you're a fan of one of these two teams, because they trade a couple of prospects wise. The headline of this trade is Michael Busch. The Cubs are getting him and Yancy Almonte from the Dodgers in exchange for Jackson Ferris and I'm going to butcher this one, Zyhir Hope, Zyhir, if you're looking that up. Hope there. Jackson Ferris, he is the Cubs' number 8 prospect, or at least was the Cubs' number 8 prospect. Michael Busch, on the other hand, was a notable name. He was the Dodgers' number 2 and an MLB number 44. So definitely a young kid with a lot of upside. So wanted to mention that quickly. I'm not going to go too much into what this means for both teams. Busch is a hitter. Jackson Ferris is a pitcher. The other two guys are just additions into the trade. But yeah, and I saw something. It was like, the Dodgers now have Jackson Ferris and Walker Buehler, and that's Ferris Bueller, and I don't know, that made me giggle in the moment. So, but yeah, I think the Cubs, to get an MLB top-rated prospect in any trade is never a bad thing. So I think the Cubs do well here. Hopefully it kind of works out for both teams. Like I said earlier with the Rays and Mariners trade, and just in general, you love trades that kind of like last year when the Twins and the Marlins made the trade for Luis Arias and Pablo Lopez. Luis Arias won a batting title and had a great year with the Marlins. Meanwhile, Pablo Lopez became the ace of that Twins staff and led them to their first playoff wins in a long time. So, like I said, a win-win trade like that is beautiful, and hopefully 2 or 3 of these trades end up like that, and they're not kind of like a Tyler Glasnow, Austin Meadows for Chris Archer type trade like the Rays and Pirates pulled off many years ago. So, there's that. Sticking with the Dodgers here, let's start with some of these big signings that happened. And Teoscar Hernandez, we mentioned him when we were talking about Mitch Haniger. He is now heading over to LA on a 1-year, $23.5 million deal. Teoscar banking on himself with a year with the Dodgers here, and it makes sense with the Dodgers. Look great. If you take a look at their projected lineup now, Mookie Betts at second base leads the way. Shohei Ohtani, the DH. Freddie Freeman at first. Will Smith behind the plate. Max Muncy at third. Teoscar Hernandez playing left field gets slotted into the sixth hole. James Outman, the center fielder, seventh. Jason Hayward, the right fielder, eighth. And then Gavin Lux, the shortstop, ninth. And I don't know about you, but that team kind of can be scary there. Teoscar Hernandez now breaks up that four lefties in a row type beat. So he gets to split the gap there. Possibly even if you move him down a little bit, play seventh and have Outman go to the sixth hole. That way Muncy and Outman bat 6-7. Hayward and Lux bat 8-9. All those guys are lefties. So is Freeman and so is Ohtani. So this team is actually made up of 6 left-handed bats. Which is very interesting and something to note. If you are the Braves or the Phillies or Diamondbacks, left-handed batting is full of the Dodgers MO here. Teoscar, though, what a career he's had. He spent plenty of years with the Blue Jays. And Toronto, obviously his first couple of, at-bats and moments were with Houston in 2016 and 17 before he was traded in 2017 to Toronto, where he spent a lot of his time there. Beginning of the decade, 2021 and 2020 is where he shined. Back-to-back Silver Sluggers that time. Top 20 MVP votings both years and also an All-Star. Kind of became the prolific power bat that we see him now today as. Obviously, since 2021 has not been the same. 2022, though, was a slight down year, and then RC last year with Seattle. Kind of a year he'd wanted to forget, kind of one of his worst years in the last, 4 or 5 years here. And that was just because of his strikeout numbers were abysmally high. Definitely not doing great there, but still had 26 home runs, played all pretty much games, 160 games there to a 741 OPS. That's not bad to say the least, but definitely when you're paying him, how much they were paying him, you definitely want a little bit more productive. His years prior to that, 807 OPS, 870 OPS, 919 OPS. Obviously, that was the COVID year. But still, it's definitely a nice move here for the Dodgers. But the more interesting thing to kind of note here is that he's also getting deferral payments of the $23.5 million that the Dodgers are paying him. 8.5 is being deferred between the years of 2030 and 2039. And it's something now that just is becoming, I guess, part of the Dodgers' scheme now, or their way that they do things. I definitely think they need to get looked into. I don't know, something about it seems off to me, a little fishy. I saw something on MLB, I think it was MLB Network. Right now, the Dodgers have deferrals between 2028 and 2040. So in that 12-year span, they owe Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Shohei Ohtani, and now Teoscar Hernandez $865.5 million. Obviously, Ohtani getting the forefront of that, but still, the fact that they owe 4 players that much money in deferral payments is very interesting here. So, and we're here now entering 2024, so the next 16 years these are getting paid out essentially, even though they start in 2028. It's something that's a little interesting. I'm not sure how much I like all these deferrals that the Dodgers are having. The Ohtani thing, that makes sense to do it that way, but for Teoscar to get, 8.5 deferral on a 1-year deal, it's a little odd, to say the very least. But we do have to applaud the Dodgers for at least going out here this offseason and spending some money for these additions. They spent over $1 billion in their free agent signings. And if you look at the latter end of that, the Marlins are still out here having signed no one. So, they now the Cubs have a little bit more ledge over them because the Cubs did make a move. Not only did they trade with the Dodgers for Michael Busch, but they've also signed, hopefully I don't butcher this one, Shota Imanga from the KBO, I believe, or possibly NBP. Double checking here. It was the FGN. Not sure which one that one is, to be honest with you. But the Cubs do sign him to a 4-year, $53 million deal. There is a team option for the 5th year, which would push the deal over to $80 million if they take that there. I believe it happens in his 2nd or 3rd year into the deal. So they would obviously, the 4th year would get uplifted so much money, and the 5th year would be so much money as well. But the details are still kind of working their way through medias and everything. But at least the Cubs have finally did something. They've added to that rotation staff. They have made a move here kind of to replace, I guess, Marcus Stroman in a way. He essentially becomes the number 2 guy in that Cubs rotation, just under Justin Steele and above guys like Jameson Taillon and Kyle Hendricks, as well as Jordan Wicks here. Taking a look at this guy, obviously, I can't say much about him. I know he was in the WBC, and I definitely should have went to go watch some highlights here. Last year, he was with a team called Yokohama, and he ended up being, so he is from the MVP as well, but also foreign league as well. Now I'm looking at it here. Excuse me. And so, yeah, in 2023, he pitched 7.4. Nope, that's what am I looking at here? I'm all over the place. He was 7-4 last year with a 2.8 ERA. That's better wording there. So he's definitely a guy. I believe he's a left-handed pitcher as well. Yes, he is. Coming over, it's going to be his age 30 season this year. He spent 8 years playing baseball dating back to 2016, all with in the MPB. In his, just in general, his career-wise, he's 74-55 with a 2.96 ERA in that time there in his 8-year career in the MPB in Japan. So he makes the move over. He will be a Cub for the first couple of years of his career here. So hopefully that works well for the Cubs. It's finally good to see them going out there and trying to make their team better. I find the NL Central division to be one of the weaker divisions. The Reds are up and coming with young talent. The Pirates, same thing, but maybe a couple years behind the Reds, 2 years maybe. And then the Brewers, Cardinals, and Cubs essentially lead their way there in that division. And the Cardinals, after seeing last year's collapse, their pitching definitely improved this year and the moves they've made. But the Cubs, they needed to, go out there and kind of add. They lost Caneleo, they lost, guys like Fulmer, Bellinger, Stroman. So they definitely needed guys to, come aboard here. And Amanga is hopefully the first of a few signings that they get to make before, baseball season starts and everything. But hopefully it's a good, domino effect as the Cubs will hopefully make some more moves coming up here in the future. And speaking of, I guess, the Cubs rotation and replacing Marcus Stroman, it's funny how things have been working out today for transitions, but Marcus Stroman has also signed. He's heading to New York, the Yankees, on a 2-year, $37 million deal with a vesting option for a third, which is basically both a player and team option. They both have to agree to have that 3rd year. But Marcus Stroman is heading over to New York. And that's going to be a weird sight for some because obviously he spent the first half of his career with the Blue Jays, where he was an all-star, won a Gold Glove, came 8th in Cy Young once. Definitely a staple in the Blue Jays franchise as he spent his first 6 years of his career there before getting traded to the Mets. Where he, spent some time there, finished off in 2019, the year he got traded, did not play in 2020, decided to opt out for COVID, and then played in 2021 with the Mets, before then signing that 2-year deal with the Cubs, essentially, and played 2 years there. So 2 years with the Mets, 2 years with the Cubs, 6 with the Blue Jays, and now begins his tenure with the Yankees, his 4th team in his career here. And he's been a good player. Obviously, last year, his second All-Star game, and was a very good year for Stroman last year. He was 10-9 with a 3.95 ERA. Definitely spiked in the second half. The first half, he was cruising to a top 5 finish in Cy Young voting. Pitched 136 innings, only gave up 9 home runs, but then again, he's never been notoriously bad for giving up home runs. The most he's given up in a year was 2017 with 21. So definitely a strong year for Stroman here. He slots himself kind of into that Yankees lineup behind Cole, possibly guy. Like, I'm not sure where he eventually slots up, if he slots up second or third, because Carlos Rodon is obviously there, Nestor Cortez, and then Clark Schmidt is right now listed as the 5 starter there. Whether he pitches second or third, that is up to Aaron Boone, but I think it's a good move for the Yankees to get him. There's always been rumors about Stroman having, clubhouse issues or clubhouse problems. This goes back all the way to the Cubs, happened in the Mets a little bit, but when you see him on TV, the way he is with his teammates and everything, it seems like everything is okay. So it depends on how much you trust and believe rumors. But in his career, and in his near 10-year career now, essentially, which is pretty crazy that Stroman's entering his 10th year, he's collected 21.7 WAR, and he's pitched to a 3.65 ERA career-wise. So, like I said, for New York to always, need pitching, it seems like, this is a good move for the Yankees, and hopefully Stroman has another good year like he did with the Cubs last year. All right, now, so those were, I guess, the 3 biggest signings of the week, but we do have a couple other signings here that I want to get into, touch upon quickly. I guess the biggest out of them all being Sean Manaea, who is signing a 2-year deal with the Mets for $28 million here. Manaea, left-handed, came over from the Padres last year with the Giants, pitched to a 4.4 ERA. Has been a solid 3 guy. He was kind of the ace with Oakland at one point, but always dealing with injuries and everything. His ERA has always been kind of spiky. 4.4 last year, 4.96 the year prior. 2021 with Oakland, 3.91, and for Oakland, that's pretty good. So Manaea finds himself onto his 4th team in the last 3 years here. Being the Mets, so hopefully it kind of works out for them like it did Chris Bassett. Other moves here, the Angels are signing Zach Plesac to a 1-year, $1 million deal. Brent Sutter is going from Colorado to Cincinnati as he gets a 1-year deal with the Reds for $3 million. The Braves are signing a division rival. Luis Guillermo is on a 1-year, $1.1 million deal there to go please some depth for that Braves organization. And then the Rockies made a couple of signings here. Dakota Hudson signed a 1-year deal worth $1.5 million, and then Jacob Stallings a 1-year deal worth $2 million there. And those are some of the other signings that happened. I wanted to add this into the Marcus Stroman section as well, talking about New York. Some news came out about Blake Snell. He turned down from New York a 5-year, $150 million deal. Obviously, he's looking for something closer to $200 million. He's talked about that a little bit. But I just wanted to mention that because I find it interesting because, obviously that deal is off the table now that they have Stroman. They're not going to go out and get Blake Snell most likely. I wouldn't put it behind the Yankees, but, it'd be interesting to see what they do there. But it's interesting that Snell is, turning down 5 years for $150 million. He's definitely banking on himself to get a better deal, and I guess we still have to wait and see if he's going to find it. All right, now last thing on the agenda last night was the 2024 arbitration deadline for teams to come to an agreement to, work things out. So let's go through that briefly here. I want to go through some of the top names here. Angels, pretty much, they get most of their guys on deals here, most notably being Patrick Sandoval to a nearly $5 million deal there. The Astros, they reached an agreement with Framber for $12 million, Kyle Tucker for $12 million, Urquidy, Luis Garcia, Chas McCormick, all of them reaching decisions. For the Athletics, guys like Miguel Andujar, Paul Blackburn, Seth Brown, Abraham Toro, they're all good. The Blue Jays had quite the list of guys on arbitration, and they met them pretty much with all of them except for one. Trevor Richards, Danny Jansen, Kevin Biggio, Romano, Varsho Kirk. So all those guys are good there. The Braves only had two, Max Fried being the biggest one for $15 million. They meet a deal there. Brewers match with Willy Adames on 12.25. Corbin Burns on a $15.637 million deal. Devin Williams, 7.25 there as well. So some big names for the Brewers. The Cardinals meet with Ryan Helsley for $3.8 million there. John King for just over $1 million. Dylan Carlson as well. Tommy Edman did not reach an agreement, so we'll talk about those at the end here. Nick Madrigal, good with the Cubs now we're looking at. Patrick Wisdom is good. Justin Steele being the big one there for $4 million there. Diamondbacks met with all of their players, and a couple of big names here. Zach Gallen and Christian Walker just making over $10 million each there. And then Paul Sewald at $7.35 million there. Dodgers, they make with Walker Buehler for $8 million. Will Smith, $8 million there. Yarbrough, nearly $4 million. Same with Evan Phillips. Looking at the Giants, Mike Yastrzemski getting just south of $8 million there. For the year. The Guardians find it with Shane Bieber for $13 million, around that mark there. Looking at the Marlins, they definitely struggled, but the big, most notable name, Jesus Sanchez, $2.1 million there. Jesus Luzardo was $5.5 million, so he's actually the biggest name there, the ace of that staff now. The Mariners do what they have to do there. Ty France getting just south of $7 million. The Mets and Pete Alonso reached an agreement for $20 million. Pretty interesting stuff there from the Mets. The Nationals, they have Victor Robles on a 2.65. They make an agreement there. And then Lane Thomas on a 5.45. Baltimore definitely having the most names here, about 15 of them. And they did pretty good to meet most of them. Anthony Santander being one of the biggest with $11.7 million. Cedric Mullins is $6.3 million there. The Padres, they get some matches. Michael King, $3.15 million. The Phillies, Ranger Suarez on a $5 million. Gorky Soto on a $5 million. So a couple names there. Pirates met all their guys. Rangers, Nathaniel Lau is $7.5 million there. Other guys like Leo Tavares, Adolis Garcia did not get an agreement to reach. The Rays and all of their guys, they make agreements. Isaac Paredes, a 3.4. Randy Arozarena being the big one, an 8.1 there. The Reds, Lucas Sims leads that way with 2.85. The Rockies, Cal Quantrill, 6.55. They picked him off of waivers earlier this offseason. They find agreement there. The Royals and Nick Anderson set up for $1.5 million, being one of the bigger ones. Brady Singer, a 4.85. So that's a pretty hefty deal for Singer there. Tigers and Tarek Skubal meet for $2.65. Twins match all of their guys. Kyle Farmer, a $6.3 million. The White Sox, $8 million for Dylan Cease. Kind of low in my mind. And the Yankees, Gleyber Torres, $14.2 million. Alex Verdugo, $8.7 million. Clay Holmes, $6 million. But the biggest one, the biggest contract in arbitration history, Juan Soto, $31 million in arbitration with the Yankees there. Pretty crazy stuff. But now quickly, let's take a look at the negatives here. So for the month of, ending January, beginning of February, we have 28, that was way higher than it should have been, 22 cases here to get filed for, arbitration. The biggest name here definitely being from the Blue Jays, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. He has put his salary in at $19.9 million. The Blue Jays filing for $18.05 million here. I'm not going to go through each guy's salary versus what they are expecting to get. I'll just go kind of briefly through some of them here. Taylor Ward is a big one here for the Angels. Jose Suarez, Mauricio Dubon with the Astros, Tommy Edman with the Cardinals, J.D. Davis with the Giants, Luis Arias with the Marlins, Tanner Scott with the Marlins, Jazz Chisholm with the Marlins, Phil Bickford with the Mets, Austin Hayes with Baltimore, Ryan O'Hearn with Baltimore, Danny Colombo, I definitely pronounced that incorrectly, sorry Danny, with Baltimore as well. Cionel Perez with Baltimore as well. So Baltimore 5 guys. Like I said, they had a lot of arbitration players. Alec Boehm with the Phillies. Adolis Garcia with the Rangers. Harold Ramirez with the Rays. Jason Adam with the Rays. Jonathan India with the Reds. Casey Mize with the Tigers. And then Nick Gordon versus the Twins. I always find this kind of interesting because obviously, for these players, it's a negative mindset because your team thinks less of you than you do. But at the same time, you don't want this to kind of like impact the relationship going forward, which is why I guess the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. one is so big for some people. But like Casey Mize, he put his in at $840K, the Tigers at $815K. I mean, what's the extra $25K to make your, potential future ace a little bit happier? Adolis Garcia put his in at nearly $7 million, while the Rangers put him at $5 million. If I was, the judge in that situation, I would go with Adolis Garcia. Kind of led them to a ring. You think he's worth a little bit more there. Some of these names are interesting. Like I said, Jazz Chisholm, an interesting one. Luis Arias, batting title, is an interesting one. He wants $12 million. Marlins want to do 10.5. Tommy Edman there. So yeah, definitely some interesting names. I'm sure as we go along, we'll talk about them as they start to happen and, decisions start getting made. But for now, we're going to leave it there for the arbitration talk. And that will also wrap up today's episode. So thank you, everybody, so much for listening to today's episode. Lots of trades, the arbitration stuff, and some big signings. Teoscar, Shota, Marcus Stroman. Like I said at the beginning, we're getting closer and closer to some baseball. I'm excited for year 2 here, for me here. But yeah, just want to say thank you all so much. Hope you guys have a great weekend. Enjoy some playoff football, wildcard weekend here. And yeah, so thank you everybody so much. And I will see you next time.